We have some major breaking news. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has officially cemented himself as the weakest and most ineffective leader in American history after delivering yet another massive loss to Donald Trump. Multiple Republicans just split with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Trump and voted to advance a bill to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies that have been up for debate for months and that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has been trying desperately to shoot down. Let me explain. Speaker Mike Johnson shut the government down for two reasons. You can point to two main reasons. Number one was to not release the Epstein files. He wanted to stymie the release of the Epstein files by shutting the government down. That one is obvious. But the second one was because they did not want to extend these Affordable Care Act subsidies that allow 24 million Americans to have affordable health care. These subsidies would expire and health care would double for tens of millions of Americans. Marjorie Taylor Greene knows this. Republicans in purple districts know this. Republicans in Pennsylvania understand the stakes if Americans lose access to health care. So let's just back up for a second. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson shuts the government down, and then after it reopens, he immediately loses a discharge petition for the Epstein files to be released. A few key representatives, a small group of a few key representatives like Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna, Rand Paul, Yasemin Ansari, a few key Democrats and Republicans came together to put this discharge petition on the floor, and Mike Johnson ended up losing the vote. After closing the government down, Republicans ended up splitting from Mike Johnson in voting for the discharge petition. Now, if you don't know what a discharge petition is, it's a way for House members to force a vote on the floor without the Speaker even needing a say. So Speaker of the House Mike Johnson can be subverted and can lose his power, and that has happened twice. So after the Epstein file discharge petition is forced on the floor, all the Republicans vote in favor of releasing the files, except for one random guy. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson took a massive loss there. Let's fast forward about 5-6 weeks to today. The Affordable Care Act subsidies have been a huge debate. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has been desperately trying not to extend this for the American people, yet Hakeem Jeffries says, urgent update. Our bipartisan petition to force a vote on a straightforward extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits now has 218 signatures. We'll interview Representative Jeffries soon. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed if you want to see us covering this breaking news, interviewing Democrats, and fighting back against the MAGA disinformation. We need your help. Just click subscribe below. Mike Johnson should bring the bill to the floor immediately. Let's walk through the process. So Jake Sherman said at 9 a.m., breaking news, Mike Lawler has signed the House Democrats' discharge petition on a 3-year extension. Lawler is the second Republican to sign. We need 2 more votes. And then we learn Representative Rob Bresnahan has signed. He was the third one. We are just now 1 vote short. And then we learn that Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, Ryan McKenzie, multiple Republicans come over and sign this, leading to this CNN headline that reads, GOP centrists choose nuclear option and fight with Mike Johnson over Obamacare. In a stunning blow to Speaker Mike Johnson, 4 GOP lawmakers on Wednesday agreed to back a Democratic push to extend pandemic-era Obamacare subsidies. The reason why this is such a stunning blow to MAGA Mike Johnson is because in 12 months' time, the midterms will have happened. Actually, sooner than that. On November 3rd of 2026, Republicans are very, very likely to lose control of the House, meaning Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will be out of his speakership. He'll be out of a job. Well, he'll still be a representative, but he will no longer be the top dog, and he will no longer have power. We will very likely see a Speaker Hakeem Jeffries, which is good because right now, being out of power and sharpening the blade a little bit and learning how to maneuver while being the beaten up party is good. We're learning how to outmaneuver them a bit. We are getting sharper, and Hakeem Jeffries, I am confident, will make a good speaker. Now, to continue, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will very, very likely lose all of the power that he has. Just remember, Republicans are desperately trying to rig the midterms via redistricting because they know they have betrayed the American people. They know that they're not going to give the American people health care other than the 2 or 3 or 4 other than the 4 GOP centrists who chose to quote unquote go nuclear. I love how the nuclear option in this case is just giving Americans more health care, but Republicans, no, they don't want to give Americans health care. They just want to go to war. They want to send $40 billion to Argentina, $13 billion to Israel. Over and over, they want to give money away. They want to pardon billionaires, pardon crypto entrepreneurs and scammers, but when it comes to actually helping the American people, they haven't been there. They've been nowhere to be seen. They understand at the end of the day they are going to lose the midterms. That's why this is such a stunning blow to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. It's funny because just an hour before this vote happened, he was on CNBC trying to play cleanup, so desperately trying to control the narrative, yet listen to how easily he lies.
But here's the false narrative. The Democrats are pretending as though this affects everybody in the country. It affects 7% of Americans, this extended subsidy. And of those, even if it was extended without any reforms at all, it would only reduce that small group of Americans' premiums by 5.7%. The Democrats have tried to pretend as though this is all about
Americans. No, I understand that this is not for everybody, but it's 22 to 24 million Americans, and there are some Republicans whose districts are going to face some real trouble and some real issues with this. We've talked to some of them. I understand that Mike Lawler from New York was particularly upset yesterday, that he was kind of furious about it, said it's idiotic, it's political malpractice. That's what he told Axios on some of this. They said they could hear him yelling from outside the room yesterday where all of you were meeting.
Listen to this foreshadowing. Mike Lawler was one of the people, one of the Republicans that switched over. He was furious. He was yelling, saying this was political malpractice. What is he saying is political malpractice? The fact that Republicans for the past 4 months have jumped through hoops, shut the government down, delayed votes, delayed the swearing in of Representative Adelita Grijalva to stop the Americans from having what they need. Transparency regarding the Epstein files, but more importantly in this very moment, the healthcare premiums, the healthcare subsidies that are about to expire in 2 weeks' time. Millions of Americans, tens of millions of Americans will see a 100, 200% increase in their health care. So when Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, let's just debunk this, when he says only 7% of Americans will have an increase in their health care, number one, that's 24 million Americans. So let's just use the raw number. 24 million Americans is not some niche group. That's more people than live in the state of Florida. More people than the entire state of Florida. Number two, 24 million Americans means a lot of people know an American who relies on the Affordable Care Act. Everybody knows somebody. But third of all, when you actually focus on who the 7% are, who are these 7%, it's not a random slice of the population. Affordable Care Act subsidies are disproportionately concentrated in older Americans, people who are not yet eligible for Medicare, but people who vote a lot and very, very reliably. Lower and middle income working class people who vote very, very reliably. Self-employed Americans, early retirees, or people with pre-existing conditions or chronic conditions. The point here is everybody deserves healthcare, of course, but Mike Johnson is trying to brush off 7% of high propensity voters. When you remove children from the equation, that 7% bumps up even more to like 12%. This is a massive, massive portion of the voting population. So, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is hardcore coping. You know who's not coping? Is Mike Lawler, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the few key Republicans like Representative Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Ryan McKenzie, and Rob Brisnahan of Pennsylvania all know that they would be done for come December 31st when these subsidies expire and when the real prices begin to kick in. So then we learned from MeidasTouch, breaking. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition has reached 218 signatures, clearing the threshold needed to force a vote on a clean 3-year extension of the Obamacare premium subsidies. Dude, Mike Johnson is losing absolute control. 4 GOP centrists have officially opted for what they described as the nuclear option by signing on to Democrats' procedural maneuver to force a floor vote on their proposed 3-year extension of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries now has the 218 signatures needed to guarantee a vote under discharge petition rules. The floor vote cannot be forced until January, however, under those same rules, but he should force it now. Democrats are trying to get it on the floor now. At the very minimum, we'll be able to see which Republicans will immediately vote against this. Here's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson on CNBC, then dodging and weaving for Donald Trump's Rob Reiner comments. I like how the government is so dysfunctional that Americans can't have health care, can't have affordable health care when they go to the doctor. And Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has to spend 2.5 minutes of his interview talking about the president dunking on the body of a slain director.
I'm going to ask you a question I don't think you're going to love, but I do want to ask you about it because you were asked it, but you didn't answer it earlier this week. And it's actually about the president's remarks about Rob Reiner and the murder that took place over the weekend and some of the disparaging comments that he made. You've talked so much about character over the years, and I wonder if you would just speak to the comments that the president made, especially in light of the fact that, he was shot a year and a half ago, and there are a lot of people on the other side of the political aisle who came to the president's defense, praised the president. And I think in a moment like this, when the country sees something like this and then sees the president make these comments, and then you were asked about them and didn't comment on them. So I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Well, I did comment at length. They just didn't replay that part. No surprise here, Capitol Hill Press Corps. But what I said was straight from the heart. I heard about it coming out of an event in the morning when the news broke. And my comment was that, obviously it's an unspeakable family tragedy in the Reiner family. Just a horrible thing to think of. The son is apparently the murderer of his parents, but it also speaks to the rampant evil and violence in our society, there's root causes of that we try to address here every day as well, but it's ultimately a human heart issue. But our prayers are with the Reiner family and everybody involved. And I said, I immediately go to scripture in my head, and I was thinking of Psalm 34, and it says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's my reaction. That's what
What about the president's comments,
every day here.
Yeah, I think you can hold two ideas in your head at the same time and say that you can praise the president about many things and you can condemn the president's comments about certain things. And in this case, I'm asking you about that.
Yeah, look, I know. I'm asked to give running commentary on everything that the president says every 5 minutes of the day, as well as all of my colleagues here. And yes, we got many ideas at the same time.
He is the president of the United States. Of course, they're going to be asked about the man that is dictating the policy that you have to implement every single day. Of course. What are you talking about? There's more to the clip, but Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has had a rough day. He says earlier in the clip, this shows the evil and the vile in the world. Are you talking about from Nick Reiner or from Donald Trump? Because obviously what Nick Reiner did was magnitudes worse, but Trump did something pretty evil and vile too. Hours after they were pronounced dead, he made a political post that was just disgusting. Imagine the daughter of Rob and Michelle Reiner on the worst day of her life. Easily the most tragic, worst day of her life. And then the president of the United States weighs in, and it's that bullshit? That's the evil and the vile.
I don't communicate the same way. I am my own person, and I speak, from my voice. The president and I address issues differently sometimes. That's not the way I would have done it. It's not the way I have done it.
The only issue they address the same are probably the treatment of women, because women in Congress, even Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, are saying they're being treated like shit. And any woman reporter who dares to ask Donald Trump about his association with Epstein gets called piggy or stupid or a terrible person. I'm going to leave it there, but Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is rapidly going downhill, losing all control of his caucus. I genuinely think that in 1 year, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will be weeks away from, obviously, the transition of power that will knock him out of the speakership. I love you all. I'll see you in the next video, and peace out.